All right, our illustrious speaker this week is Catie Wytychak, and she's with I'll let her tell you, the Ann Arbor Water District. So we'll let her start with her presentation on rain gardens.
All right, can you all see my screen?
We can.
Okay, perfect. So hi, everybody. I'm Catie Wytychak. I work for Washtenaw County. I'm in the Water Resources Commissioner's Office, and then within that, I mostly work on rain gardens. So the bulk of my job is to manage the public rain gardens that are within the city of Ann Arbor, and we have some new ones in Ypsi. I'm starting to get more involved in the construction of new rain gardens. So we'll sometimes write grants and then build new rain gardens. And we've done a few last year, and we will do a few next year in Ypsi Township is our focus of our current grant. So I'm excited today to talk to you about rain gardens. The title is Keeping the Huron River Clean, One Garden at a Time. I've been with the office for about 10 years now, and I really love it. It's a great place to work. It's really good. It's very positive work. You hear, sometimes we can get bogged down with a lot of depressing news, and rain gardens are one thing that is just so positive, something that anybody can do on their own property. And that's one reason why I love working with them. All right, so we'll go through what is a rain garden, why plant one, what are the big problems that these little rain gardens can solve. I'll talk you through how to actually build a rain garden. I'll give you some resources about how you can learn more, and then we should have some time at the end for questions. And feel free to jump in at any point and interrupt me with questions. I have you all up here on the side so I can see you if you raise your hand. All right, so let me try to move something here so I can see everything. So rain gardens are, they're pretty. Hopefully you've seen them and you think that they are pretty, but they also have a function, and that main function is for water quality. So the EPA says that they have a functional and appealing They are functional and they're appealing site drainage that treats stormwater as a resource rather than a waste product. So you might just walk by these gardens and think, oh, it's just a beautiful garden. It actually has a big job to do. So on a normal landscape, what you would see is water draining off of your roof and onto your driveway, through the streets, and going directly into a storm drain. You can't walk anywhere really without seeing these storm drains. They're all over the place. And what they do is send all of our stormwater directly into the river. And they're really treating that water as a waste product. We're trying to get rid of it, trying to stop flooding. Now, the idea of rain gardens is you capture that water and use it as a resource. So you're directing water from these same places, from your roof, your downspouts, maybe just from your lawn, from your driveway or sidewalk, even from the road. And you're putting all that water into this shallow depression of a rain garden. The water will pool at about 6 inches of depth. So don't imagine a big pit that fills up a couple feet. It's really just 6 inches of water. And then that water slowly soaks down into the ground and gets absorbed back into the earth. That's the idea. So we're using it as a resource. Now, who's doing the biggest job in all of this are really the rain garden plants. So over here on the right-hand side of this drawing, you can see Kentucky bluegrass. That's your normal turf grass that you'll have in your lawn. And you can see just how shallow those roots are, and of course, how short the plant itself is. Now, all of these other plants that are drawn are native plants that do well in rain gardens. And they have, you can see, just extensive root systems. So prairie dock, the biggest one, those roots can get down to 15 feet. And if you touch those leaves, even on a really hot summer's day, the leaves themselves will feel really cold to the touch. That's because the roots are bringing up really, really cold water from the ground. So these roots are sucking up all that water, using it to grow. And then also about a third of the plant roots die off every year. And where those dead roots are is now an open channel. And water can then soak down through that open channel into the ground. So over time, rain gardens actually work better and better as the plants get more and more established. There's also little microorganisms in the soil that can eat up some of the pollution. So there's just incredible things going on underground that you would never see. Now, why else do people put in native plants? Well, they can attract pollinators. This is a beautiful, beautiful rain garden that's just off of Platte Road, so very busy. But you can see how many birds and butterflies have found this tiny rain garden and are using it as habitat. If you haven't heard of Doug Tallamy, he has a movement called Homegrown National Park. And the idea is everybody can pitch in and have their own little national park on their front lawn. And that's definitely happening here on Bayless and Platte. This is just a beautiful garden. Now, you already have really what you need. You need a downspout. Almost everybody has one. Or maybe you have a driveway or just a grassy area that collects stormwater. And that's what you need, a source of water. People put in rain gardens to solve problems. So even though rain gardens have this huge impact on water quality, they also can reduce flooding or solve puddling problems. So you can see in this picture, there's actually the neighbor's downspout is directing water that used to go onto this homeowner's driveway. And Roger Moon has actually built, I think, 6 rain gardens around his property, but this one here is collecting that water from the neighbor's downspout, and the water fills up inside this garden, and it's no longer pooling on the driveway. So it's not causing that problem like it was. And you can see really clearly in this picture, this is just a berm, a mound up of dirt that's creating sort of the side of the bathtub of the rain garden. I'll get more into the specifics of how these are built, but I like that picture showing the berm. Another problem that we see a lot this time of year is ice on the sidewalk. So we have our downspout coming down off of the building, a little drain popping up and spilling directly onto the sidewalk, which of course is going to ice up, and then people can slip. So putting in a rain garden right here, even if it's only 1 foot wide, would collect that water, spread it out, let it soak down into the ground, and not get onto the sidewalk. And you could plant in your rain garden, you could plant these same shrubs if you want that visual barrier. You might have to choose a different species of shrub, but there's a huge variety of plants that can go into a rain garden. So you can achieve the same look as what you have right now. Another problem is just a really wet spot on the lawn. So this homeowner put in a drain around their house, and then that drain popped up and dumped water right here on the corner. And that area was just always really wet and saturated. It was hard to mow, so there was always ruts that are being left in the lawn. So they decided to put in a rain garden, and here it is. It looks beautiful, no more ruts around it. Now the water is being used by these plants. People also just do it for fun. It doesn't have to be because you're trying to solve a problem or help water quality. Maybe you just want a new garden and you don't want to have to water it. Some people put in rain gardens to save money. If you're in the city of Ann Arbor, you can get a credit on your stormwater bill for putting in a rain garden. It does have to be a certain size compared to how much water is flowing into it. So there are some rules to check out about that. And then getting back into those big environmental problems, these tiny rain gardens do have a huge impact downstream. So some of the big problems that we're trying to solve are toxic algae and cyanobacteria. that are making their way into Lake Erie. So in Washtenaw County, most of our water, almost all of our stormwater, flows out into Lake Erie. And you can see on this map, Lake Erie has a lot of environmental stressors. It's very shallow and it has a lot of runoff flowing into it. Not just us, but we are contributing to it. So everything that we do upstream helps our friends down in Lake Erie. Oh, this is from the EPA. The biggest remaining water quality problem is polluted runoff that carries pollutants from many diverse sources into our streams, lakes, and rivers. Sources include farm fields, urban streets and parking lots, suburban lawns, golf courses, construction sites, and atmospheric deposition. This picture was taken in Ann Arbor, downtown. This is after a snowstorm. We've all seen this, of course. Our snow turns pretty brown quickly. That's just from pollution that's on our landscape. There's trash, of course, leaves, things that you can see, but there's also things that you can't see. Like our tires, we all know that we have to replace our tires every so often. And that's because little bits of our tires actually slough off and end up on the road. So after a big rainstorm, if you go out, it often smells really nice. And that's partially because all those little bits of pollution have been washed away. But they've been washed into our river. Here are more examples. Construction sites can be tricky. We have people in our office that their whole job is just to go out to visit construction sites and make sure that this isn't happening, that you don't have huge expanses of dirt that is eroding into a storm drain. And there's ways, of course, to put up silt fences, those little black fences, to stop the dirt from moving into our storm drains. There's fluids that can leak out of our cars. There's debris from our roofs. There's chemicals that are put onto our lawns. There's animal waste. Most people, of course, now pick up their dog poop, but we have a lot of raccoons that actually live in the storm drains. And all of their waste, of course, is getting washed right out into our rivers. We call all of these different things hydrofilth. And all of it ends up in the storm drain and then goes directly into the river. And then here's what it looks like downstream. This is in Lake Michigan. So this isn't our runoff, but it is stormwater runoff. So, okay, that's the problem. Now getting into more of the solution. We have this program we've been running for about 15 years now, where we train people to build their own rain garden. And through that program, people have built more than 2,000 rain gardens on their own properties. And this is just incredible. We don't offer anything except for education and advice. We have a class. We also will go out to people's homes and give them advice. But we don't have any way to pay for plants or pay for the construction of these gardens. So all of these were installed and now are being taken care of by homeowners. So this is just a huge amount of work that's being done throughout our county. And it's helping to soak in a huge amount of stormwater. It can be, of course, beautiful. This is just a gorgeous one. And okay, so now how do we do it? I'm going to jump over to a little video. Can you still see my screen? It's a video now. Okay, and I'm going to play this. Oops, stopped on me. Well, you got to see most of it there. So that was a master rain gardener. Bridget, who actually is also an ambassador, and Bridget Gruber, and she built this rain garden with her family, and took photos all along the way to document the process. So it's a pretty simple idea. You take off your turf grass, you dig down so that your garden can pool 6 inches of water. You add compost, mulch, plant it, and then watch it grow. Okay, let me get back to sharing my screen. All right, so this is another master rain gardener and a master gardener, Betsy Lindsay, and she took the master rain gardener class. So it's offered online and in person. And there's one that's going to start in about a month, and then another one, the online one, will start in April. So check out our website for those dates and sign up. She took the class. She dug her rain garden herself in her backyard. You can see the downspout from her garage is dumping into this little garden. This was always a wet spot in her yard. And then this happened, and she called us and said, I don't know if this is right. This seems like a lot of water, and it looks like all my little plants are going to die. But we said, no, give it a little bit of time. The gardens really should drain down within 2 days. But when the plants are tiny, they don't have those extensive root systems. So it could take a little bit longer, but hers did drain down. And now here it is a few years later. Actually, this was later that spring. So really quick growth on this garden. Plants are really well established. Now, when it floods, the water disappears quite a bit faster. But also you can't see the water because it's in amongst these plants and flowers. So it looks a lot nicer in her landscape. So again, we offer these design assistance visits where we come out and walk you through where you could put a rain garden, how to do it. We'll give you resources on where you can find the plants, who you could hire if you want to hire a contractor to do it. We can recommend plants that we think would work for you. We'll ask you lots of questions about how you want your garden to look, how tall you want it, if there's a certain season you want more blooms, and then we can give you some ideas on good plants. And then we also offer this Master Rain Gardener certification program. So if you decide I want to design my own rain garden, the first step is to look at your property and follow the raindrop. So here's an example of a house. You can see these yellow lines are how water is flowing. We walked all around with these 2 homeowners and looked at all of the downspouts. Look at your downspouts. Sometimes there's funny problems that are happening with the downspouts that you don't notice until you really take a look at them. So, okay, there's 4 downspouts, 2 in the front yard, 2 in the backyard. And then we thought about, well, where would you actually want a garden? Or maybe you want to put something else, like a tree or a shrub or a hedge. Will this spot solve a problem that you have? Would putting a rain garden in this area capture a big chunk of rainwater? Will it be shown off to your neighbors if that's something that you want? And then what site would actually make your heart sing? And then do the one that speaks to you. So these 2 chose their front yard. They wanted to make the front of their house look nicer. There also was a problem with water in their basement some of the time. So this option helps to solve that problem by directing the water away, soaking it into the ground safely in a rain garden. And then they also did want their neighbors to see it. All right, so they chose their spot. Now the question is how big to make the rain garden. So first you want to look at how much area is flowing, how much of the roof area is flowing into that site. So there's a website called washtenaw.org/map-Washtenaw. And you can actually draw a little polygon on your roof, and that will tell you what the square footage is. You can also just paste it out and get a general idea. And then you want to take 15% of that area, and that is going to be your rain garden area. So the rain garden should be 15% of the area that's flowing into it, if that makes sense. So this is the roof area. That roof area is 908 square feet. We multiply it by 0.15 to get the square footage of the rain garden, 136 square feet. So not that big, but not tiny either, 10 feet by 13 feet. And there's the mapping tool if you want to write that down. All right, now will it fit? Will a 10 by 13 foot rain garden fit here? Yes, it is going to fit. And they can make it 15 feet from the foundation. So we also don't recommend that you put a rain garden right next to your foundation. You want to be at least 10 feet away so that you're not sending water right back into your basement. So these are the general rules of a rain garden: 10 feet from the house. 15% of the impervious area should be the rain garden area. Now, if you have clay soil, you want to make it bigger. You only want water to pool at 3 to 6 inches in depth. Again, if it's clay, you want it to be more shallow. And if you have sandy soils, maybe you can get away with even deeper than 6 inches because the water is going to disappear faster with sand. You want to mix in compost no matter what, and then mulch on top just like you would any other garden to make sure that you're suppressing weeds, retaining water, and just so that it looks nice. This is important. You want to make sure that you have a safe overflow. So in this garden, we want to make sure that there is a place in the berm where water can escape in a big storm. So every year now, recently, we've been getting these massive storms. Your rain garden is going to overflow at some point. You want to make sure that it overflows away from your house towards maybe a storm drain. You don't want it to backflow towards your home or your neighbor's home. And then the fun part is choosing your plants. So we always say, choose the right plant for the right place. And now I'll get more into plants. This is just a little joke. I actually have skipped compost in my own yard because I have pretty good soil. But generally you put about 2 inches of compost. This is a side view, a profile drawing of a rain garden. You want to make sure that the bottom of your garden is flat so that water spreads out evenly and then soaks in really nicely. You want to make sure that your garden is going to overflow over your berm and not go back up where your pipe is coming in, or maybe you just have water flowing in over the ground. So setting up something like this, this is a line level where you just have 2 stakes, a line across, and then you can buy these little levels that attach to a string, and then you can measure down. So you can make sure that this point is lower than this point right here. And then I always take a couple measurements across my rain garden to make sure that it's actually flat on the bottom. It's really hard for us to judge the grades of things just with our eyes. So it's good to use levels. All right, so here are those steps again. Dig, level the bottom, build your berm. That's like the side of your bathtub. Add in your compost, till that compost into the existing soil. That helps to make sure that the plant roots actually get down into the native soil. We've seen instances where people put in a huge amount of compost and then the native plants just stay in that nice compost zone and their roots never get down to the native soil, the 15-foot depth, because they're kind of cozy in their nice compost zone. So we only recommend 2 inches of compost and then till it into the native soil. Then mulch it and plant it. And there you go, a new rain garden. This one is very small. It's on the side of one of our existing beds, but it's capturing water off of the roof. So this right here is the rain garden. Okay, so now the plants. You have different zones within your rain garden. The wettest zone is usually where the water is first coming in the very bottom of your garden. Let's see, wild iris is a wonderful plant. It does really well. It spreads, has these nice blue-purple flowers. and the leaves stay really tall and kind of strappy even into the winter months. Fox sedge is another one of my favorites where it really keeps its form in the winter. And you can see in this picture, it can kind of be like a mass of plants. So it's almost like some people call it a green mulch, and they'll use it underneath, like a layer underneath all their other plantings, because then you don't have to mulch, and it can really suppress weeds. Where you have this plant, you're not going to be weeding at all. Sensitive fern is another good one, and it's really not that sensitive. And putting them all together here is this garden really looks nice, nice textures, even when you don't have a lot of blooms. Now, these are some sun-loving plants. You can get a lot of seasonal blooms with asters. They can bloom all the way into November. Your purple coneflowers, of course, people love and recognize that as a good plant. So what we don't want is for people to look at a rain garden and say, oh, that's just kind of a weedy mess. Adding in some of these plants that people recognize makes it look more like your more typical garden. Swamp milkweeds, of course, are really important for the monarchs. That's a beautiful one that does well in wet areas. This blazing star you might not have seen before. It has a very unique bloom. It's also really good for wildlife, of course. And then this is the one that has the 15-foot deep roots, the prairie dock. On some plant lists, you'll see it as 9 feet tall, but really it just has these huge leaves that are maybe 2 feet off the ground. And then it has a giant stalk with really small yellow flowers on the top. I love that one. All of these are beautiful. And then often people will ask, well, I have shade. I don't think I can build a rain garden. There's plenty of shade plants, and they're not just ferns. There's some beautiful color too, like cardinal flower is a really dramatic red that you can get in a shady garden. Here are some full sun plants. The black-eyed Susans, again, are ones that people just recognize and love. They bloom for a really long time. Same with nodding wild onion. Nodding wild onion looks good throughout the growing season because of its foliage. Another one that I love as a ground cover is wild strawberry. That one you can plant along the edges and it will creep. It will compete with your grass really nicely. And it has these beautiful, nice yellow flowers. Canada anemone also creeps. In fact, a lot of people don't like it because it can just take over a garden bed. It's pretty aggressive. But if you're building a public garden or a garden on a property that's really not going to get a lot of maintenance, this can be a nice one to fill in all your gaps. And there's then less weeding to do. Prairie dropseed is a plant, I believe it's threatened and endangered, but you can buy it. You can buy it from our local native plant nurseries and plant it. It's a beautiful one. If you're thinking about doing controlled burns as a way of maintaining a rain garden, then you want to get a lot of grasses in. And this is one of the nicest short grasses that we have. So the grasses for a controlled burn add fuel, so the fire will carry. Here's some more shade plants that do well on the side slopes. Wild geranium, of course, it has a beautiful spring flower, but then the leaves turn a nice red color in the fall. So it adds some fall interest too. Wild columbine is just beautiful. It's a hummingbird plant. Wild ginger can be hard to get, but it will start to spread once you have it. And the leaves are also very unique. There's shrubs and trees too. Fairly often people do want to create some kind of barrier, like a hedge. So there's some options for doing that. And then trees for shade. Maybe you're building a rain garden close to a parking lot or next to a path or a playground, some area where you want more shade. And red buds are a wonderful native tree that have these just beautiful, beautiful spring color. All right, so hopefully you're convinced and you want to build a rain garden. Now we can help. So we have a program called Community Partners for Clean Streams. And your church can apply. It really, any organization can apply. Lately, we've been working with a lot of condo associations, HOAs, nonprofits, businesses, anybody can apply. The purpose of the program is so that we can come in and work with you on improving water quality before it leaves your site. So trying to soak in as much water as possible on your property, building rain gardens, planting trees, looking at what kind of pollution might be running off your property and how we could prevent that from happening. So we do a site visit. There's an application that we want you to fill out. And then you're eligible for design assistance. So we can do a design for a rain garden or a planting. We also have a mini sponsorship program where we can help fund a project, usually about $1,000. And then we give recognition to our partners through our Environmental Excellence Awards night. And Scott is here. Scott, this is a picture from your rain garden at the Seventh-day Adventist Church. They are a partner. All right, so in conclusion, this is fun and meaningful work. This is how serious the problem is, and this is also how important your work is. And this is how weighty your contribution is. Oh, this is like Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Erie. These are all lakes that, of course, we want to keep pristine. And here's my contact information. You're welcome to shoot me an email if you're interested in the Community Partners for Clean Streams program, and I can send you more information, and we can start setting up times to meet to talk through that.
All right.
Are there any questions?
Well, first of all, yeah, let's thank Catie. All right. All right, who has some questions?
Yes,
I've got a comment, the fact that we have one of those 2,000 rain gardens in our yard already. And maybe that's why she recognized my name, because my wife is the one that did it. So she's a master gardener.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Well,
is it full right now?
What?
Is it full of water right now?
Everything's full of water around here right now, but
Yep.
we're in Dixboro, so we aren't in the city of Ann Arbor. So
yeah, nice.
Yeah,
Scott
so
Nelson.
I've got a comment and maybe two questions. First of all, Catie came over with her group and did a water resources assessment on our church property, and then offered a free design, and so then back in 2018 we put in our rain garden, which sits between a parking lot and a flat roof, so it's like the perfect spot for a rain garden. It's gotten quite mature, so it looks really good, and Catie's been kind enough to come by and advise on whether certain plants are invasive and need to come out, which ones need to be pulled, and so forth. So I've appreciated that. A really teeny little question that you brought up, Catie. I work here at the Great Lakes Science Center, where we are managing the biota on the 5 Great Lakes. And I had a question from a construction contractor about the tires. And, some people will look at a certain aspect of pollutant and, wonder about that aspect, which is obviously entirely appropriate. But, what the impact is. I didn't look this up, but I just wondered if you knew whether tires as a degradation product produce microplastics, or it just degrades into some other form.
I don't know. We're just starting to study the pollution that's ending up in our rain gardens to better understand what it is and in what quantities. So just this year, we worked with EMU students and we sent 10 samples from 10 different rain gardens of our sediment from our inlets to a lab and we got the results back, and it's just massive amounts of pollution. Which is great because we're then scooping it out and landfilling it. It's not ending up in the river like it normally would. But we don't know all the specifics of, what do those little tire particles do in the river? Maybe there's a study out there, but I'm not aware of it.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
good question.
Yeah, my other question is that we've had some water incursion at the corner of the building at the top where the top of the rain garden is. So I'm simply thinking that, and we have no downs, like gutter along that edge of that flat roof to, it just pours off. And then my attempt was to get that to hit the turf and then roll down into the rain garden, which for the most part, I think it does. But right at the top there, we're getting water incursion into the room, which is kind of a new phenomenon. But with all the rain we had last year, last summer and even now, it seems like the combination of the increased moisture and and then the fact that it's really still collecting there, looks like we need a solution to direct that
And
water away
also
from the building.
over time, there can be very slight changes to the grade that have a huge impact.
Yeah.
So just getting some dirt, and not topsoil, but actual, dirt, fill dirt, and building up that corner so that when water lands there, it spills away from the building. That could be a first step.
That would be a good natural way to do it. Putting some of those splash guards in, so just an impermeable, it hits the splash guard and rolls right off. That would be perhaps another.
Yep. You just have to check it to make sure it doesn't get knocked out of place.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that was a really good overview, by the way. A good refresher overview, up to date. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Katie, had a great presentation. I really like the pictures.
Thanks.
So for when you're getting plants, I assume you're buying plants like from a nursery and you're not going from seeds.
Yeah, so we have found live plants, little seedlings are the best way to go. Seeds end up just getting washed around and can get washed out of a garden in a big storm. And we're really lucky that we have a couple native plant nurseries in our area. So we do have on our website, if you look up Washtenaw County Rain Gardens, we have a page that's just devoted to where to get these native plants. There's a nursery that's part of Green Things Farm called Feral Flora. That's in Ann Arbor on the north side. They sell really good plants.
We sourced all our plants, Murray, from Wild Type, and we did it as a group buy that Katie's group put together. So that's a really cool way to go. 2-inch plugs. So yeah, it's a great way to get the rain garden off and running. So if you just follow Katie's recipe, then you'll have like about 101% success.
The Conservation District also we partner with them now to do that group buy, is through the Conservation District spring plant sale.
Yeah, I noticed that Karen put a link to help answer that question about the rubber. It said 78% of the ocean microplastics are actually from tires. Wow.
Oh.
I thought I saw another hand raised. Was that Tim? Maybe we got to the questions.
Yeah, whether or not he raised his hand, maybe he could tell us a little bit more about the rain garden at Genesis.
I do have a separate comment on one of your slides that came up from working with the Genesis thing. I think your slide showed rainwater credits, but I believe that is different for residential versus kind of a commercial organizational property. So I think in our experience, we found that it wasn't the same spot on the webpage. I forgot the exact details, but if you have more experience with that for the rest of the group, that would be possibly helpful as well. It's not quite
clear.
as simple. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
All right, let me see what I can find. Through Community Partners for Clean Streams, you also do get a credit on your stormwater bill as a nonprofit organization or whatever organization you are if you're in the city of Ann Arbor. And then let me see about the credits for non-residential. I think I can send the website over.
Yeah, that might be helpful to have that. And one last thing is, so for Genesis, we completed the rain garden. I mean, I guess it's an ongoing thing each year because you're maintaining the plants and replacing them. Some may not survive and stuff. I think it's located, I guess, on the Packard side between the Genesis building and an apartment building, which has a parking lot or a driveway there. So one of the things that I was looking for in the Master Rain Garden program from Washtenaw has a good plant guideline. I think there's even like a 2-page one that kind of like summarizes full sun, partial sun, and stuff as well. So those are great resources to connect with the Master Rain Garden program. So one of the things we were looking for that I recommended was plants that possibly are salt tolerant as well, because we know, being next to a driveway, you're probably gonna get some salt being tossed around in that nature area because it's so close. It's just a couple feet away from that. So that's kind of another one, and it's really neat to connect with the Master Rain Garden program. We I think it was Susan that I contacted to get a sign for our rain garden, and that's one of the goals of the project was to kind of have it be fairly visible. It's kind of tucked away, so it's not something that people are going to come by, depending on where you place your rain garden for your organization. If you do have a more visible spot, you get a nice sign that probably asked all the people, all the congregants that come through the doors, say, "Oh, I didn't know you guys had a rain garden. I want to learn more about that." There's a visible, nice, durable sign that gives them some clues about where to follow up, and I'm sure they can talk to grounds crew as well. Then we also had a ceremony to kind of commemorate. So we had representatives from all 3 congregations that met there to just kind of celebrate the fact that we have something that's going to clean up our environment a little bit.
We do give those signs out for free. And I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you guys have built the rain garden. I know I did 2 rain garden visits with you guys, maybe different people, to look at the property and brainstorm how to put in a rain garden. And then I know Susan did a couple visits too, over the years. So I know you guys have been thinking about it for a long time and got all the pieces together to do it. It's a big project.
All right, if no more questions, I think we're going to thank Catie again.
Thanks to all of you. And I did put that link about the city's credit program in the chat.
And Catie, could you email me that website for the mapping?
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
I will email it to you.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you all.
All right. Okay, we have a few minutes left, and we'd like to discuss any plans or improvements that we have for saving energy or water or rain gardens for that matter. Does anybody have a subject they'd like to bring up?
One thing I can report, Marie, is that we now have completed the energy audit on our 2 bigger buildings, and we had Bob Tinker come to our board to actually do a verbal readout on the report that he generated for our church building. We have 3 separate buildings. One of the things he noted is that we're 100%, what is it? Zero. I'm just not, I'm not tracking with the term where we're 100% energy efficient on our electricity because we're generating more than 100% of the electric with the solar on our church building. So it's a relatively low use building. He said it might be one of the first carbon-free buildings when it comes to electric energy. Anyway, that's just a small little point, but his willingness to come and spend a half hour going through the different improvements and the return on investment for each one was very useful. It was very enlightening to me based on the current heating system we have and what he was recommending with regards to heat pumps and so forth. So that's just a brief little report I could provide to the group.
All right.
I can comment that our First Congregational Church also has a solar array on it. And I think we're only covering about 25% of our needs. We have a 30,000 square foot building built in 1876, part of it, and the other in 1950. So it's kind of tough to be very energy efficient, but it's helped a lot.
Right, and I can report for Genesis, and we got our decarbonization plan going. I think we got it about 9 or 10 months ago, and we have been looking into geothermal. And I learned from Jan Culbertson, the director of the 2030 district, that the U of M is going to put in 20,000 geothermal wells to heat and cool their buildings. That's going to be a huge project. It's a lot of drilling. So that's just a good example to follow for your building. One of the things we're looking at Genesis is putting up more solar panels on our roof. We have 160 right now, or 60 panels, and we really don't have any roof space left, or ideal roof space, but we do have actually a north-facing roof that I think it was like we can generate 78% of what we had on the south-facing roof with that array, and it's going to add probably another 70 or 80 panels, which will bring us up from like 25% of our electrical use, maybe up maybe between 35 and 40% of our electricity use. So that's something that we're going to be meeting about on Monday. All right, anything else? All right. If not, what I'd like to do is close the meeting, and our next meeting is scheduled for, I think, the second Wednesday in March, and we will at noon, like this one, and we will send out a notice. Now, for this meeting, we were lucky enough to learn about rain gardens, but if you have a subject that we haven't covered yet, let me know, because I think we're running out of subjects. This is like the 11th meeting. So if you have something that would be of interest to the group, let me know, and we will try to get a speaker for it. With that, I'd like to thank everybody for attending. I will send Catie a thank you note, because that was a great presentation. And thanks all for attending. We'll see you in March.
Thanks for organizing, Murray.
Thank you. Yes.
Bye-bye.
And Murray, if you're still on, in terms of a subject, maybe if anyone has it, if you